Okay. Okay. So good morning, everybody, or afternoon. This is the Metal3 project community meeting, Wednesday, 4th of March. We follow pretty much the same procedure as the Cluster API community meeting. So if you want, you can add your name in the attending list, and then we'll start with a short introduction round for people who would be new in this meeting and who would want to introduce themselves. And this is, of course, not compulsory, but if you want to say a few words, welcome.
Hey, hi, this is Digambar. I'm working with Dell and working on hardware classification controller, and there are a couple of PRs we have proposals we have submitted to bare metal of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Andrew Kistelov. I was attending these meetings for probably about a month, relatively new here, and my area of interest is CI and how it's organized in Metal3 repository.
Okay, welcome. Is there someone else who wants to say a word? Okay, well then let's dive in right away. And then Doug, I guess that's your topic.
Hi, yeah, thank you. So we have maintained the V1 Alpha 1 branch for the Cluster API provider repository for a while. Since there are different versions of the API, and Red Hat is really still using the V1 Alpha 1 version, but it seems like we're the only ones that are using it. Starting to actually cause a little bit of confusion downstream in our repos, that we have an upstream one that people aren't sure where to make changes and that sort of thing. So we wanted to start talking about whether or not it was okay to close that branch and make sure that no one else is using it, and then talk about what the process would be. Mel, I see you added some comments about what exactly we might need to do and questions and that sort of thing. So I just wanted to bring it up and make sure it wasn't going to cause a bunch of people alarm. We can talk about the details on the mailing list if you don't want to use up a bunch of meeting time for it. So.
May I just jump in and ask for people not talking to mute themselves, please? Thanks. Yeah, so thank you for the topic. Like on our side, we are definitely not using it, but does that mean that you would be like ready to like give up the validation of that branch on the CI, and that we should just move on to validate only V1 FA2 and V1 FA3?
I think so from our perspective. I mean, we obviously run internal CI, so we would continue to test things there. We've tried to design things so that the host resource and the bare metal operator themselves can be, those APIs can change without the provider API having to be changed. And so I don't know that we would have any big issues, due to upstream changes breaking things downstream. So yeah, we're not too worried about that.
Okay, and so this means also that we would remove this deployment branch of from the Metal3 dev, right?
That one I don't know about. Stephen, are you on? Do we need that?
Yeah, I'm here. What was the question?
Should we remove the deployment of the V1 FA1 branch in Metal3 dev, or do you still need it there?
I don't think we use parts of the Ansible playbooks, but I don't think we use anything specific to V1 Alpha 1 for Metal3 dev, so that can probably be removed.
Okay.
Okay, so we're only using master of Metal3 dev.
Yeah, but in the scripts of Metal3 Dev in the master branch, there is like a switch on the copy version, and some specific code for deploying v1 alpha 1.
Yeah, so it would be that you can't run that development environment anymore with that branch. And does anyone actually do it? I mean, if we're talking about removing the upstream branch, then that probably makes sense too, because you're basically saying, well, OpenShift will keep using it, but you'll just use the OpenShift development environment and never a separate one.
Right.
Which I don't know if anyone is using it anymore anyway for that, so it's probably fine. Well, another downside would be, I guess a downside of removing it would be CI integration. So a CI job seeing that version of the v1 alpha 1 still works with whatever's in bare metal operator. That's it.
Yeah, so we would remove the CI jobs for v1 alpha 1, right?
Yeah.
I think we should set the copy version to v1 alpha 3 by default in Metal3 Dev. I don't know. I'm not sure if the v1 alpha 1 is the default right now.
Yes, v1 alpha 1 is the default.
So yeah, switching the default makes sense. Like whatever the latest version that's expected to be functional. I think that makes sense. It's a default. I guess the CI thing. I mean, honestly, like that can just fall on to be Red Hat's problem and not sort of an upstream problem, because this whole thing is because Red Hat or OpenShift decided to sit on v1 alpha 1, and so we should take the burden of dealing with the CI impacts. But it's just something I thought of as we talked about this.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought too. That's our problem.
Okay. Then on our side, we can proceed with removing the CI jobs from Jenkins and clean the prow config. Then whenever you feel ready, we can just close the v1 alpha 1 branch as soon as we have switched the default in Metal3 Dev to be v1 alpha 3.
Sure, that makes sense. Do we want to write up a plan on the mailing list or anything like that, or even in this doc here, just to make sure that we hit all the steps?
Yeah, we can maybe
even a ticket.
In this document might be the best, because of we can edit it all together and we don't have to have many email.
Yeah, sounds good.
Is there value of dropping the branch, really? I mean, I guess we could update the README and just say this is sort of historical.
Yeah, the issue we've had is a couple of people internally trying to figure out where to put new things that would touch that repository.
Yeah.
And,
I kind of agree. Why don't you just deprecate the branch and just lock it down so no one can commit to it?
Is there a way to lock branches in GitHub? I mean, that would be fine too. I need a clear signal to the other developers within Red Hat that they don't need to pay attention to that branch.
Well, the organization can go in and just mark it as read-only.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't aware that was a thing. So
I don't know if that's going to be obvious to people if they go and they'll see the branch still exists or.
But at the same time, I don't think we want to lose what's there, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we can tag it, and then that's what we usually did in OpenStack land, was we would tag the end of the branch and then delete the branch itself, and then you have a tag, so you have a named reference that points to all those commits, and you don't lose anything. But it's not easy to make a pull request against it.
Like a v1 alpha 1 -EOL or something.
Yeah, yeah, and I can do those steps when we're ready for them.
Cool.
Okay, great. Then I'll put a note on the Slack when we're ready with the CI, when we've done the job cleanup. There's going to be a couple of PRs in a couple of repositories, and then we can also take care of the default change. And then I will give it back to you for the rest of the action points.
Sure, that sounds great. I'll do whatever parts of it you need.
And the PRs, yeah, sorry, there was a couple of PRs still open towards that branch, like issues and PRs actually. Let me open to make sure, like, check what's the status there. On the pull requests. Yes, so we have 3 PRs that are open towards that branch and a couple of issues. I guess we probably can do some cleanup on the issues, but the PRs, should we just close them and give up?
I'll look at those. The one name that I caught that went by was definitely somebody internal. So I can look at is it all 3 of those? I'm
Yes.
not seeing, obviously, what is it on the screen that says that it's, oh, I see in the pop-up. Yeah, I'll look at those. Those are all from us internally. And we would just move them to our internal repo or master, depending on what's appropriate.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So I'll put like that on Red Hat.
Yeah.
Oh. Anything more on this topic, or should we move on?
That's all I had, unless anyone had any other questions.
Okay, great. Then let's move on. The next point is just a small PSA that there was this this query from the cluster API maintainers to rename our provider from bare metal to metal cube, and in order to not have differences between like the actual cluster API documentation and our internal things, we are like proceeding with some renaming of our provider also internally. So all the PRs are ready, and we are going to proceed with merging them now because we didn't get any comment on those. So the impact for the community is just going to be that in V1 FR3, the deployment, the prefixes in the names for the deployment will be like cap M3 instead of cap BM, and it will be deployed in the namespace cap M3 system instead of cap BM system. That's all the change, aside of documentation change.
And renaming the repository at some point?
Yeah, that was actually an open question that we didn't tackle. Should we like rename the repository or not?
I mean, if might as well. I mean, if you go all that far, you might as well rename it. I know that's additional like code changes required, but might as well knock it out. And it's also going to break the old branches, I think, which not. I mean, I guess it's okay, but I feel like that if we're gonna go through all of the renaming, might as well go all the way.
I'm a bit afraid that if we change the name of the repo, we would break other things than depending, like, because we have a lot of references to that repo, whether it's in the CI or in like.
Yeah. Well, so there's a couple ways it can break. One is just like code, like is it gonna build or not, and that one's pretty easy to fix. The GitHub does a really nice job of doing redirects. Anytime you rename something like this, you'll still be able to clone the repo using its old name. Links to the old repo will redirect. The only time that'll stop working is if a new repo got created with the old name, then the redirection and so forth won't work anymore. But as long as nothing gets created with the old name, most things will get redirected.
So do things like dep and other Go build related things that rely on the naming, do those still work?
I think those all have to get fixed. I'm pretty sure, because those, like the imports and the code will reference the old name.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm not sure if that works.
Yeah. So do we want to go that with that trouble? Because if we do it, we should do it now before the V1FS3 release.
Yeah, I mean, my vote would be to do it. I mean, I know it's extra work, but like, I feel like the name of the repo is a pretty visible place.
Yes.
And those complaints will not completely go away. If the goal of this was to kind of be a good community citizen and adjust the naming to, not irritate anyone, then we should go all the way. Otherwise, the complaint will still be there.
I wonder how many other companies have downstream forks of that repo. And those forks would still work until we rename the repo and update all the Go references.
Yeah, I mean, like our fork, I mean, I don't know that we have to rename our fork. At this point,
Yeah,
it's
we can just fix
different
ours.
thing entirely.
Yeah, we're divorcing ours anyway, so we can just fix that. I just meant, maybe we should make a big noise about this more than just in this meeting. And I've seen mailing list threads and that, but just to make sure that people are aware.
Yeah, for sure, like an announcement of some sort. But it just feels like a halfway done change without renaming the repos. Just kind of my vote. But I'm, I can help, but it's kind of, I'll leave it up to you. I don't want to like push it, but that's just my input.
Yeah,
I'm afraid that you'll get the same complaint again later if it doesn't get renamed.
Well, at least from the cluster API point of view, it's less visible. Let's say that because all the documentation and everything refers to this CapM3 now, or CapM Cube. I don't know how we should pronounce it. But yeah, the repo name is quite visible. But it's the same problem with the CRDs. Basically, we still have like bare metal cluster and bare metal machine, right? And bare metal machine template.
Yeah, at least those are namespaced.
Those are at least namespaced there, right? They do have the Metal3 -io or whatever, .io, whatever it is in the name.
Yes, yeah. No, actually not. They're not because they are under infrastructure.cluster.x-k-test.
Oh, you're talking about the cluster API related ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well.
Okay.
I don't know if those need to change too. I mean, I don't know. I guess one of the reasons, if we just kind of go back in time, one of the reasons we picked the name bare metal is like we tried to create this as sort of some layers of abstraction where our approach to provisioning bare metal, like using ironic, isn't the only way. I mean, ideally, we'd be able to plug in something else. Can't force other people to do that, but
the thing is, from Cappy point of view, there's a bit of a hype coming from some members about this packet solution, Tinkerbell, that they are like bringing in apparently, and they would want to have a provider for it. And they say that if we take the name bare metal, then it kind of like hides this Tinkerbell thing.
Yeah, I get that. I don't know if you ever run into anyone other than people just saying, "Hey, I'm interested," and it'd be cool if someone did something. If people actually show up doing work with Tinkerbell, I'd love to invite them to a meeting or something, and we can just to explore collaboration opportunities. I'd hate to miss an opportunity just because we haven't talked enough. I've looked at the overviews. The last time I looked, their code wasn't actually available. They had announced they were open sourcing it, but the code wasn't actually out yet. But just looking at the overviews, I mean, it seems like something that we could actually integrate. Like it could be another provisioning backend in our bare metal operator. But anyways, I feel like if our goal as a community, so here's my vision for this community was like, it's a place for anyone interested in bare metal provisioning for Kubernetes to work together and collaborate. And so, a group like that sounds like an obvious one that we'd want to reach out to and say, hey, like, what are your interests? What are your goals? Make sure they understand what we're working on, what our interests and goals are, and see if there's any opportunities for collaboration. Obviously, we don't have to, but we should definitely try to see if that's possible as early as possible. So with all that said, if you happen to run into anyone that's actually doing some real work there, I'd love to talk to them.
Yeah, definitely. It can
I just I haven't met anyone, and I also haven't been like go to the cluster API meetings or anything. But if I can help talk to people,
it's more like
even
at the moment it's more like a hype in my opinion, rather than
Than anyone doing work. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, and I mean, I think it's great. I love that they're open sourcing their work, and I'd love to take a closer look at it. Like I said, I haven't looked back to see if they'd actually open sourced it to look at it more to see what it would take to get it up and running. But I think that's great, and maybe it is something we could use. But time in the day, I haven't looked at it.
Okay.
But if someone was doing some active development with it, that would make it a more urgent thing to reach out and say, okay, let's see, like, what can we do together?
Yeah, but whether they're doing development or not, like the question of renaming the repo and the CRD
Yeah.
with now, because if we are going to break the compatibility, it's better to do it early on than whenever we have higher adoption.
And that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, maybe I'm just. Yeah, you're right. I guess all of my my ranting there doesn't mean we should change. I'm just more like, yeah, I wish we didn't have to, but I guess we've passed that point.
Okay. Would there be anybody opposing to this CRD change right now? Okay. Then I'll send an email on the mailing list now, and if there's no like answer of anybody opposing by tomorrow, then we'll deal with doing the whole full change by the end of the week. Yeah. Okay. Well, if that's okay for everybody and there's no point anymore on this, then we can maybe move on to the next point. Okay. Then the next point is about the release of the v1.fr3 version of Cluster API. That's as far as I know, like, is planned to be on the 10th of March. And if everything goes fine, so if it happens on that day, we are going to be on time also with the Cluster API provider Metal3. That will also be released, the version 0.3.0 on the same date. This includes all the integration with the cluster.ctl, so we've done the work to add the cluster templates, the infrastructure components, and everything. The only note here is that the infrastructure components do not include bare metal operators. So the bare metal operator needs a separate deployment, and the lifecycle management is basically not done by cluster.ctl. Due to some limitations on the migration and the fact that bare metal hosts embed the like information that we should not lose in the status, and cluster.ctl cluster.ctl does not migrate the status of the objects. So that's the main problem on that prevents us from including bare metal operator deployments also there. Yeah. So independent lifecycle and migration for bare metal operator. The rest is included in cluster.ctl. Is there any comment or question related to this?
Is that a temporary thing, Mail, or is that? I thought when we talked last, we were going to try to improve on that. So I understand that they're not there yet, but is there work or discussion to?
Yes. So
from that point?
We have had already like a couple of times a discussion about a possible v1.fr2 for bare metal operator, and we've been like discussing of splitting the CRD so that we would create like 3 independent CRs, like one for the management of the physical hardware, like containing like the BMC credentials, address, and all these kind of things. The second CR would be for the user that would be like consuming the bare metal host to give, for example, the image and the checksum of the image and then the user data. And the last CR would contain all informations needed from the bare metal operator point of view. But these were only like discussions in one of the issues that we had. So like we have a plan to propose design document to discuss that further, to see if we can. And I see that Doug has something to say on this.
Yeah, we did also talk about storing some of the status data in an annotation and teaching the operator to move that into the status fields. So yeah, I'd like to see that design document written up. I'm not sure about splitting the CRD in the way that's been described.
Yeah, yeah, we're definitely gonna list the different options. But that is not going to happen definitely before V1 Alpha 3.
Yeah.
Hopefully for V1 Alpha 4. So like as soon as we have a bit of bandwidth to work on that document, we're gonna do it. And the goal at the end would be that it would be sufficiently parameterized so that this provider component so when you deploy it with cluster control, the parameterization allows you to give all needed informations, like for example the network interface that the HTTP server would be binding on, and things like this, like all network informations like the address, etc. So this is definitely not the problem. The main blocker is just this information's being stored in the status right now. Did that answer your question, Rodolfo?
Yep, I got it. Thank you.
And there was actually a second point that was a bit tricky to solve, is that all objects that clusterctl or cluster control works on need to have a way to be posed, like to not be reconciled. And this is done with there's two ways to do that. The first one is to put an annotation on the object itself. So just putting like a pose annotation, or the second is to put a spec to modify the spec of the cluster object to put post to true in the spec, and then all the controllers are supposed to check also the status of the spec of the cluster. But this is a bit problematic in the bare metal operator case, because the BMH and the bare metal operator itself is completely unaware of the CAPI side of the thing. So we would need the integration. Like let's say we would need the CAPI provider metal cube to do the work of putting the actual annotation on the bare metal host, so that the bare metal operator doesn't have to care about the cluster itself. And Doug,
yeah, you just said what I was going to say. So yeah, if the provider annotates the host, then we could certainly make the operator honor that annotation.
Yes, definitely. So this is something we've been like looking into a bit. It's not a blocker, but it needs to be implemented before we can move to the bare metal operator into clusterctl objects. Yeah. Okay. If there's no other comment on this, let's move on. And then Digambar, you have a couple of points.
Yeah, hi. So a couple of PRs still outstanding, pending in the community under Metal3. These are the proposals. PR 60 is all about hardware classification controller. We have already started working on it. I think basic bare minimum support we are adding, and I think Doug Sanib has reviewed it. Can we merge that soon? Because there are a couple of hardware profiles we are working on, so we need to raise those PRs under the proposals, Metal3 talks. Second one is about NUMA, that is not finalized, but 66 about state put mode is almost finalized. That needs one look from your side, guys. And a couple of other PRs related to hardware classification controller. I saw some comments from Doug and other things on PR3, and the bare metal 407 is almost mergeable. I think we have tested at our end. Please take a look at it and needs your follow-up on this.
Okay, thank you. Doug?
Yeah, so I looked quickly at each of those documentation pull requests for the MetalCube docs repo. Each of them has review comments that need responses or requests for changes to the design. So I think before we go too fast with the implementation, let's get that sorted out, because it's going to be a lot easier for us to agree in general terms on what things look like, and you'll end up doing less work in the long run, rewriting things over and over again. So
yeah, sure, I'll reply to those questions or comments and request by tomorrow itself.
Okay. Is there anything you want to discuss now here about those PRs, or should it be issues? Sorry, or should it be just dealt offline on the PRs themselves?
Okay, I think hardware classification controller is something we are looking for. I think this is one of the project or CRD will play major key role in airship community under the airship cutter, because there are some hardware profiles we are talking with Rudolfo and team, and those needs to be passed, and accordingly we have to classify the bare metal host based on the profiles provided. So maybe I'll update the PR and this MetalCube talks accordingly with the latest discussion we had with Rudolfo and team, and we'll address your comments also there.
Okay, great. Then let's talk about this in the PRs themselves then.
Yeah, sure.
Good. Anybody?
That's all from my side.
Okay. Any further comments on this, or should we move on? Okay. Russell. Sorry.
One from my side. Do we need any design document for each of these PRs? I think any design improvements, thus, or only replying to your comments is fine.
Okay, Doug has an answer, I guess.
Well, I would prefer that we, as a group, agree that it's good to have a design document when we talk about API changes. Every pull request doesn't need one, but if we're talking about expanding or changing the API, then having a design document gives us a place to think about all of the ramifications for doing that, and the different ways to do it and all of that. And you've seen that we have pretty healthy discussions on some of these changes, and it takes a while to figure out the right way to do this stuff. And it's a lot less frustrating. I mean, it's frustrating for it to take that much time, but it's a lot less frustrating to do it in text than it is to have to rewrite your code 3 or 4 times because people get different ideas as they start seeing it. So I think it's not ideal. It's not what we would do if we were all sitting in the same room together. But I think it's the best solution for us to work asynchronously and distributedly and still come to agreement. So.
Yeah, sure. What I'll do, I'll put all my all these PRs updated tomorrow with design documents, and then I'll request you guys. I'll mail you on the MetalCube community for reviewing it.
Okay, I see all of the new pull requests come in, so to the docs repo and to the well, I think all of the repos. I think I'm subscribed to all of them, so I don't need a separate notification. I'll just watch for your pull requests.
Okay, sure.
It's specifically like some of the changes you have in this pull request 3 need to be discussed in more like in a MetalCube docs PR.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, good.
We'll update that. Thank you.
Thank you. Then Russell, please.
Sure. So I just wanted to draw some attention to a pull request I put up to the docs repo. It's not a code design thing. It's more of a, I guess, a community design. You could look at it this way. But the proposal there is about sort of a community future topic. When we started this community, it was with very little governance or we just focused on building something useful. I think we've now, a year later, it's pretty. I'm pretty proud of what this group has produced, but it's clear that it's grown from a few people at a single company, and it's a much larger group with a handful of companies involved. So it seems like a good time to think about what's next in terms of community structure and that sort of thing. The document there proposes that as a community, we apply to become a CNCF sandbox project. And that is basically the entry level classification for a project under the CNCF. And it wouldn't have a whole lot of day-to-day impact right now. There's certain things like we would need to officially adopt a few policies that CNCF has, like their code of conduct, their intellectual property policy, and I think I may be forgetting one. They have some policies around how you manage code contributions. I think we have a document that just says, by contributing to this repository, you're agreeing to the terms of the Developer Certificate of Origin, or the DCO. A lot of other projects require an explicit signed off by header, and we haven't been requiring that, but the CNCF does require that. So that'd be like one sort of minor commit process thing we'd have to change. But otherwise, anyways, I don't expect big changes in the short term, but I do think it seems like the appropriate foundation home for this project, and so that's what I proposed. All the feedback on the pull request has been supportive, +1, let's do it. But I did want to leave time in case anyone had further comments. And point of here is an opportunity for live discussion if anyone has any comments, or a last call for people to leave comments on the pull request today. Otherwise, then I think we'd merge it. And then, so assuming we go forward, my next step is to write the actual application. The application is submitted as a pull request to one of the CNCF repos, but I was going to write the proposed application as another pull request against this repo to have this group of people help review it and contribute to it. But I'll get it started and put something up for everyone to review and contribute to. And then once we agree on that, then then I'd go submit the application. I think I have some more comments on sort of the order of what needs to happen in the existing pull request, but that would be what comes next. But anyways, that's sort of the overview, and now it's just open if anyone has any comments, questions. Otherwise, comment on the PR, or if I don't hear anything else, then I'm going to keep going with it.
Okay, great. Thank you for the PR. Any comments from anybody? Well, apparently not. Everybody's agreeing with the PR. That's great.
All right. Happy to put up the non-controversial ones.
Okay, then let's move on to the next point. Ricardo, that's for you.
Yeah, thanks. Just a quick update on the status of the CentOS 8 repositories. So the status seems way better than it was until last week. There's actually a constant update from that site. So there is a set of patches that basically point all the packages that we're using to tested packages, tested in CI. So with the integration testing that is available for RDO Tripolo, basically. And I think we should move to these more stable packages and more tested packages, since the CentOS 8 repos are almost in a good shape, basically. That's just it.
May I ask a question here? Like, how closely do they follow the master head, those new packages?
So right now they're still a little behind because all the process that, like, it requires a lot of process to basically convert everything from CentOS 7 to CentOS 8. But in the last week, they moved very, very quickly, and they're very close to just convert everything. There are a lot of patches upstream in Tripolo that basically confirm this, where they are also converting everything to CentOS 8 and using the packages from CentOS 8. So basically, I think we should have everything from master head to master. Even now, probably there's no real difference. I'm just worried, basically, like the real reason why I put these patches together to point to a tested package is because I'm worried that maybe we will find at some point some issues related to packages that are not tested together, or we will not find the correct dependencies, for example. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you for the patches. We'll review.
Thanks.
Is there anybody who would have a comment on this? Okay, then is there anybody who would have an additional topic that is not yet listed in the agenda and would want to discuss something more right now? Well, then I guess we can call it a day. So thank you for joining, and see you around.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.